Hi, I'm Darren, and I'm a fitness enthusiast. And as you can tell from the picture above, I'm also a dog enthusiast. So I'm going to let you know my presentation is going straight to the dogs right away. How many people in the crowd are dog people? Raise hands. Great. If you didn't raise your hand, you can exit stage left. Just kidding, I get it. Not everyone's a dog person. And hopefully over the next little bit, I might actually push that needle a little bit and maybe make you consider being more of a dog person. So I'm going to talk about resiliency and the things that I've learned from my little guy, Rudy. This started about 15 years ago. My wife and I wanted to adopt a dog. And it was a 4-year process because we had very specific requirements of what we were looking for in a dog. And I'll let you know, we looked at probably 100 different SPCA sites. At one point, we were going to drive 8 hours to take a look at a dog. That's kind of how particular we were. We were just about to give up when all of a sudden, Arnold showed up in our inbox. And we said, he's pretty cute. So we went over to the SPCA and we met Arnold. And he has quite the backstory. He spent 4 weeks on the streets by himself. He went to 2 different SPCAs. The one that we went to see him at, he was in quarantine for 6 weeks with parvo, which is a dog disease. They wanted to make sure he didn't have it. And when he came out of the cage to see us, he was fired up. He was so excited. He jumped up, so forth, and it was just amazing. And I said, okay, there's something to this guy. And I honestly think that's probably what started me on this journey of resilience. And what is it, and how do we have it? Because we saw so many dogs with, unfortunately, behavioral issues because of the experiences they had. And this guy probably had one of the most difficult, traumatic backgrounds because he even had gnaw marks on his teeth because he had spent so much time in a cage. That's what the vet told us. So what we figured out, he was a pretty cool dude. When we got home, he was pretty cool. But one thing needed to change right away, and we knew it, and that was his name. No offense to anyone who's named Arnold, but our dog was not going to be called Arnold, so we went with Rudy. And Rudy joined us, and he was just an amazing little guy. And, I love him to death. So what I realized right away is how people responded to Rudy. And we would be out walking at the park, and the most disgruntled, unhappy, having a tough day person would be walking towards us, and all of a sudden they would look up and see Rudy. And he's got the biggest tail wag, his back end wags, and all of a sudden you would see that person open up, they'd start to smile, and they would nudge their friend and say, look at that guy, look at that guy. And he would come towards them, and all of a sudden he would let out this huge howl. And they would go down and pet Rudy, and they would say, oh my gosh, what is he? Where'd you get him? So forth. And what I started to notice is how much more positive they were. And this conversation that we would have would be super positive. It would range. We would talk about Rudy, and then it would go on to other things. And all of a sudden, we would just go skipping on our way. So this person who was walking towards me like this, all of a sudden was open and feeling better. So this is one of the first lessons I learned from Rudy. And what I started to do is apply it in my own life. So what I would do is I would meet someone and I would smile and say hello, and they would say hello, and then I would smile bigger and they would smile bigger. And I went, wow, this actually does work. Then I took it a step further. So when people say, how's it going, Darren? I'd say, awesome, amazing. Try that sometimes, because all of a sudden you'll see people go, what? What did you just say? Everything's great? I said, yeah, no, everything's great. Then what I would notice is the preceding conversation would be super positive. It would be awesome. I will say I am a budding researcher, so I would do the opposite. So sometimes when people say, how's it going? I go, oh, I'm so stressed. Things are so busy. I got work and this. And then what I would notice, the person would go, oh, I know, I'm so busy. I'm so stressed too. And then that classic competition would start over who's more busy. And we would have the back and forth. And then I would notice we would both walk away kind of deflated. And what I would start to notice is this battery boost. I'd either get my resiliency battery pumped up or I would get it pump down. And that's one thing that I took away from Rudy from the park, and I implement that on a day-to-day basis. So I did the negative part of my research. I don't do that anymore, so it's always awesome. Things are great. Try it sometime. Then what I noticed is he's always happy to see us when we come home. And we literally, my wife and I, race out of the car to see who's going to get in the house first to greet Rudy. Because literally, it's like the first time he's ever seen us. Every time we come home. He lets out a howl, he waggles, his back end goes, and he's just excited to see us no matter what we do to him, because we even sometimes dress him up for Halloween and so forth, and he loves it. Now, if you didn't know, dogs don't really interpret time. So sometimes when I come home and I need a little extra boost, I'll come in and get that, hello, how's it going? Then I'll go outside for 10 seconds, and I'll come back in, and it's all over again, because he doesn't know whether it was 2 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days. He doesn't care. It's just, so excited to see you. So what I started to realize is, what if humans did that? What if when I came through the door, or someone I love came through the door, I ran to them and went, how was your day? Was it good? Was it great? Can I lick your face? Can I hump your leg? What can I do? What can I do? As opposed to going, the dinner's in the fridge. I just want to finish watching this show. Think about that. What kind of a resiliency boost you would get when someone came in and you were super excited to see them versus, this is day 892 of our marriage. So, yeah, think about keeping that excitement, because that's what I learned from my little guy. And you can tell when dogs are smiling because they'll be on their back and you can actually see them smile. So, considering how people responded to Rudy, we started to say, well, what about being a therapy dog? And I will say, I didn't think it would happen because he's not super obedient. We didn't want to be one of those, sit, stay, do this, do that. We kind of wanted him to be a little obedient, but if he sees a squirrel, he is gone. So I said, I don't think he'll make it, but sure, because we're both pretty passionate about seniors and seniors' care, and we don't have children, so we thought this is something that we could do. So my wife took him off to the Red Cross, and I was upstairs doing some work, and I figured they were going to come home dejected. And I heard the door open, I heard the patter downstairs, and I come down, and here's Rudy with his therapy scarf, and very excited, very, very excited. And I said, how did he pass? She said, well, it wasn't about obedience. It was just, was he nervous of wheelchairs? Was he nervous of walkers? And I said, oh, yeah, that doesn't bother him. She said, one of the last things they did was 4 people crowded around, got low, and walked towards him. I said, what did he do? He said, big smile, and he was like, 4 people coming towards me. This is great. And he was running between them and so forth. And then they turned and said, I think he can be a therapy dog. So they gave him the scarf. He was pumped. And we started to go to care homes. And one of the first experience was my next learning with Rudy, is he ran into a room, and my wife went after him. And I stood in the hallway and talked to the nurse for about 20 minutes. All of a sudden, Rudy came out, and the nurse said, what were you doing in there? She said, I was talking to Mr. Smith, and she kind of stepped back and said, he doesn't speak to anyone. And she said, I don't know, Rudy ran in, jumped on the bed, put his head in his lap, and all of a sudden he opened up, talked about the dog that he had, talked about his wife that passed away, what he did, and his military experience and the whole thing. So at that point, what I learned is maybe it's not 2 degrees, maybe it's not a counseling certification and so forth. That's great, that helps people, but maybe it's just pay attention, be present, and actually show that you care. What I also realized is what energy that takes. So we would go to mental health days and so forth, and Rudy would be stoked, and he'd be running around, but all of a sudden I would notice about 50, 60 minutes in, boom, he was done. It was over. And when he comes home at night, he gets a really good night, deep sleep when he does that. So what I started to recognize is when you're giving a lot of energy out, you got to look after yourself. You got to recover. And when I was younger in my life and earlier in my career, I didn't do that because I did the life coaching and I was a personal trainer and I do talks and so forth. And I would come home and I would just keep plowing through. I'd go to the computer, check my emails and do all that. And then, of course, I've had big full system crashes. So what I recognized from my dog, because if you didn't know, Dogs are one of the only animals that don't delay sleep. Us humans, we're stupid. We'll stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning on the computer drinking coffee going, I got to do this. I don't know if anyone, like you said, had a dog, but you've probably experienced where they're walking and they're tired and I'm just going to rest for a while because they don't delay sleep. So sleep, super important. It's just one of the great things that I learned from my dog. Mindfulness. I told you that we go to the park a lot because I am a professional exercise physiologist, not just a fitness enthusiast, so this dog was going to get exercise. What I recognized is Rudy would always put his cell phone off to the side before we went to the park. Yes, he has a cell phone. And as soon as he got out of the car, he smelt everything, he played with everyone, he smiled at everyone, he chased squirrels, he smelt stuff. He just had a great time. And when we got back in the car, he was stoked, awesome, great. Me, when I first started going to the park, I'd be on my phone answering questions, calling, thinking about the stuff that I had done that morning, what I was going to do in the afternoon. I'd get back in the car and I was literally physically exhausted. Not from the actual walking, but just from all that. So then I recognized, hey, I left my cell phone at home. I felt the leaves under my feet. I started to feel the sunshine. I started to smell stuff. And I even chased a squirrel every once in a while. And I recognized when I got back in the car after doing that, I was pumped up like Rudy, ready to roll. So I realized that's a great way to boost my battery, keep my resiliency high. And I was probably the first person, dog. 90% of people think dogs are part of the family. He's definitely part of our family. That's where I first learned about mindfulness. Now, Rudy just turned 10, had a big party for him, had all his friends over. And if you don't know, that's probably around 70 in human years. He still loves to play. Every night at 8 o'clock, whether we're sitting in the dining room, the living room, wherever, Rudy comes up and starts stomping his feet. 8 o'clock sharp every night. And we're like, okay, Rudy, let's go downstairs. That means he wants to play. And he's 70. I don't know how many 70-year-olds you know, but I don't know too many that come up and stomp their feet and say, I want to go downstairs and play. We go downstairs, and he rips for 25 minutes. We play hide and seek, his favorite game. We play tuggy. He rolls over on his back. We put his fake pajamas on. We do just about everything over 25 minutes. He's physically exhausted. We're laughing, having a great time. And when we're walking back up the stairs, what I noticed is the weight of the world could have been on my shoulders before we went to the basement. And when I'm walking up, I either don't remember it or I'm laughing at what I was stressed out about. So Rudy's not going to be with us forever, but I recognize I'm going to keep playing my life. It keeps my battery boosted. I don't know if that still means we'll go down to the basement and my wife will throw the tuggy and I'll grab it, or we'll play hide and seek, but we'll figure it out. I'm an optimist, but I'm a realist. I get there's stress, there's anxiety. Lord knows I've had it, feelings of anxiety, feelings of depression. It's not that you climb up on the wave and you kind of ride the wave the whole way through life. The waves crash. Sometimes you get pulled off to the side. You got to paddle back out to the wave and get back up on it. So like I said, I'm an optimist, but I'm realist. But when the wave is crashing, when you got to paddle back out, I ask you to do one thing, and that's remember Rudy. So be optimistic, be mindful, look after yourself, be present, and be playful. Now, after all that, who would like to meet Rudy? So, I think if we chant his name, but not too loud, but just right, Rudy might join us. Are we ready? Rudy, 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 Rudy. Come here, Rude. Come here, Rude. Yay! Thanks, everybody.